my god! Maniacs, welcome back to the channel. Your local bedhead here. We are going to be diving into another production Tales from Hell, and this is from possibly one of my biggest guilty pleasures of all time, Troll 2. Now, if anybody has not seen Troll 2, thankfully you don't have to watch Troll 1 to kind of get a gist of what's going on in Troll 2. It is absolutely 100% one of the worst movies ever made, and it makes it kind of awesome knowing that. Anyways, if you like this type of content and want some more content like this where I do these production tales from hell, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and of course, before you even watch my reaction, go and support the original release. Link will be in the description. This is exciting because, again, this movie is so bad, it's amazing. It really is a treasure to behold, and it's a movie that you have to definitely kind of see to believe it even exists. So if you have not seen Troll 2, recommend it. Just know what you're getting yourself into before you really just dive into it. It's crazy. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and dive into the video, guys, and I'll give you guys my thoughts during and, of course, after the video.
They're eating her!
And then they're going to eat me!
And then they're going to eat me!
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
And the fly on his head.
Imagine, if you will, a movie sequel that was never a sequel. A film about trolls without any trolls in it. A movie where people eat food that looks like it's covered in moss and mildew. Well, you don't have to imagine, because that movie exists. It's considered by some to be the worst movie ever, by others to be the best worst movie ever, and by no one at all to be an actual good movie. The horror movie Troll 2 somehow got made and developed a cult following despite its many shortcomings. But what led to such a bizarre film, and why do many of the cast members wish it had never seen the light of day? The proof is in the green slime pudding, and that's what we're exploring in this episode.
Yeah, it's clearly obvious. Nobody wanted this movie to be even known because let's be real. The second you realize what kind of movie you're in, your acting career is finished. This is it. If you were in this movie, you probably did not have a long career afterwards, and if you did, that has to be a miracle because anybody and everybody in this movie was not good. There are no good performances given in this movie at all. It's all garbage. Bad script, bad direction, bad everything, but it all pays off in a beautiful, glorious way. It's just, yeah, as somebody who wants to be in film in the future and you were a part of this, I'm sure it was not easy to get into any movies after this came out because there's so many people who just could not get behind it. And again, it had nothing to do with trolls. It's called Troll 2, had nothing to do with trolls. It's about goblins. Neilbog? That's goblin spelled backwards!
Episode of Production Tales from Hell.
Oh, it's so good, guys. It's so good.
Hey everyone, it's your Twisted Woman here, Chauncey K. Robinson, and welcome to Production Tales from Hell, where we dive into all the fire and brimstone it took to make the horror films we know and love, and in some cases, the darkness that followed their release. In this episode, we'll be focusing on a movie that is known for being so bad, it's deliciously good. 1990's Troll 2. There are 5 circles of film hell: development, production, post-production, distribution, and perhaps the most dreaded, limbo. Troll 2 had a simple enough development, but the devil emerged during the Hellish production process. Filming took place under a different title entirely, and the movie faced another stage of hell during distribution, which was when it became the non-sequitur sequel that so many people love to hate today. Troll 2 is a 1990 family-friendly horror comedy. It's a sequel that isn't really a sequel to the 1986 horror film Troll.
Whatever you do, don't let them eat.
More on that later. The non-sequel focuses on the Waits family, who signs up for an exchange vacation with a family
for the love of God
village of Neilbog. The Waits are unaware that the townsfolk are actually goblins, but not just any goblins, vegetarian goblins. And not just vegetarian goblins, but murderous vegetarian goblins, who turn their victims into plants in order to eat them. The goblins have their human prey eat a slimy green concoction and to have them turn into plants for later consumption. That means the Waits are in serious danger in Nilbog, and their only hope to escape lies with the youngest member of their clan, 12-year-old Joshua, who can communicate with his dead grandfather for some reason. Ghost granddad Seth helps Joshua.
This movie should have had a Shining tie-in. You know what I mean? Like, he kept talking to his grandpa, so maybe he has some sort of shine about him. That would have been insane if Joshua ended up being in, like, Dr. Sleep.
Figure out that Nilbog is goblin spelled backwards. Insert gasp here. And that all the townsfolk are goblins in human disguises, fixing to eat him and his family. Starring Michael Stevenson, George Hardy, Margot Prey, Connie McFarlane, Deborah Reed, and a whole cast of many other friendly locals of Utah, Troll 2 was directed by Italian filmmaker Claudio Fragazzo and co-written by his wife, Rosella Drudy. Drudy explained in an interview that the idea for the vegetarian goblins came about because she was pissed that many of her friends at the time were going vegetarian. Yet, instead of Troll 2 being an anti-veggie lifestyle horror comedy, it ended up taking on a life of its own in more ways than one. The demons of miscommunication.
Yeah, I never got it was a message about. I never got that was the message behind that. I never realized that was why they decided to turn people into plants and eat them. It was all about, making vegetarians look bad, I guess, like evil, vegetarian, creatures and whatnot, I guess. It didn't really come off that way, even knowing the idea's kind of unique, I won't lie. I mean, yeah, that they're turning people into plants so they can eat them, and overall it just goes among other silly things with this film that just make it come off silly.
Budgets have arrived. The beginnings of Troll 2 started off innocently enough. Director Claudio Fragazzo had made several low-budget horror and exploitation movies when in 1989, he was given a peculiar request. Italian producer Aristide Mazzacchesi, known professionally as Joe D'Amato, wanted him to make a horror film without any blood in it. This would be a departure for Fragazzo, a self-proclaimed fan of splatter films, horror films that relish in graphic portrayals of gore and violence. Nonetheless, Fragazzo took on the challenge with his partner and screenwriter Rosella Drudy to create the movie Goblin, which would eventually be known as Troll 2. They began filming on location in Morgan and Porterville, Utah in 1989.
They should have just called it Troll 2, Nilbog. Goblin spelled backwards. That would have made more sense.
And that's where the real chaos begins.
Or just Nilbog.
Proper communication and a good amount of money can go a long way in creating a wonderful film. Troll 2 was in very short supply of both these elements. Famous playwright George Bernard Shaw is quoted as saying, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place." One could argue that Troll 2 is the film personification of this quote. For starters, 95% of the production crew was made up of non-English speaking Italians whom Fragazzo brought with him to America. In fact, the only crew member who spoke English was the head of wardrobe, actress and costume designer Laura Gemser. Gemser is most famous for her work in Italian erotic films, having starred in 5 Emmanuelle movies. On top of that, the script co-written by Fragazzo and Drudy was written in broken English, since neither spoke the language fluently. These conditions made it extremely hard for the English-speaking actors to deliver their lines, or even know what they were meant to be saying. According to the cast, many of them never received the full script while filming, and when they tried to speak to Fragazzo about some of the awkward dialogue, they were met with dismissive resistance. Actors Connie McFarlane and Jason Wright, who play the teenage couple Holly and Elliot, wanted to change some lines in their bedroom scene to what they felt would be more family-friendly, and in line with how American teenagers actually talked. Fragazzo refused to listen to them, which resulted in such gems as this.
Are you nuts? You trying to turn me into a homo?
Wouldn't it be too hard? If my father discovers you here, he'd cut off your little nuts and eat them. He can't stand you.
And this.
He can't
Grandpa
stand
Seth
you.
has been gone for more than 6 months now. You were at the funeral, and I know it was very difficult for you. It was also very difficult for your father, and for Holly, and for me, his daughter.
And finally,
Yeah, that's another thing. With the script, there's too much stating the obvious. It was very hard for you, for your father, for your sister, and even his own daughter, me. So, like, do we not understand that he was your dad? Do you have to really point that out? You're treating your audience like idiots when you do that. You don't need to point out the obvious. We already kind of get an idea. Yeah.
This gem.
I'm Sheriff Gene Freak.
Fragasso would later claim in an interview that when writing Troll 2, he was, and I quote, more American than any American director. Sure, Jan. Since there wasn't a full script on set, last-minute changes were the norm. One example is the infamous dinner table scene. When the Waits family arrives at their home away from home, the Goblin family has left them a feast laced with green goblin goo. Ghost Grandpa tells Joshua he has mere seconds to figure out a way to stop his family from eating the food. Originally, Joshua...
Don't let them eat, Joshua. For the love of God, don't let them eat.
...was supposed to act possessed.
And then...
Instead, according to...
Yeah, then he freezes time, even knowing they're completely still moving. They're just sitting there like... acting like they're frozen in time.
Joshua's actor, Michael Stevenson, director Fragasso decided the boy would pee on the food instead. Stevenson quoted Fragasso as saying, You walk around the table, up to the chair, and piss on this food. Suffice to say, the young preteen Stevenson wasn't sure if he had heard the director correctly. He had, and that is how the scene ended up playing out, though thankfully off screen. This may be the first movie in history to have a protagonist use piss to one-up the monster villains.
So, did he really pee on the stuff? Because the director said piss on the food? Am I mistaken? I don't think he actually, like, pulled his thing out and started peeing on everything, right? Because that would be extremely weird and odd to, like, in front of a bunch of adults to have a little kid pull out. I don't think that's what he did, because I don't think we'd be as calm as we are right now if he really did. I guess he just, was acting like he was about to, I guess.
When miscommunication and bizarre last-minute story changes weren't happening, the production had to deal with a lack of money. Troll 2 was made on a meager budget of $100,000. Reportedly, there were no dressing rooms for the actors, and the catered food was often pizza. Many of the cast members had to use their own clothing for the movie. The late Deborah Reed, who played the wonderfully campy Goblin Queen, ended up creating her own standout look when the costume team failed to buy anything that worked. Reed even used an olive green coat that had been passed down from her grandmother. It was ultimately covered in green slime. The actress would later say that the slime was difficult to get out of the family heirloom. Darren Ewing, who played Arnold, had to endure nearly 14 hours of makeup, all while standing up for his character's tragic end of being turned into a humanoid potted plant. Ewing explained in an interview that for those scenes, the crew took his shoes, the ones he owned, and screwed them into the base of the pot where he stood for hours. Jason Stedman, who played Drew, wore a yellow shirt with a logo for the first half of the film. Unfortunately, somehow, this original shirt was lost by the crew. Stedman was told to go buy another yellow shirt himself in order to continue filming. He didn't do that, and no reshoots took place. So if you look closely, actually, you don't have to look close, it's pretty obvious. Drew is wearing a totally different shirt in the second half of the film.
I actually didn't even realize that. That's kind of shitty, though, that they actually told him, since, the crew lost your shirt, go buy a new one with your own money. It's like, you can go fuck yourself, first off. Like, no! Ridiculous.
With no explanation. Now, I won't fault Troll 2 too much for the low dough, given some of the best horror movies have been made on shoestring budgets.
Yep.
But ruining Ewing's sneakers is kind of messed up. I'm just saying. On top of this, you had some of the cast having to pull double duty in other areas. George Hardy, despite being one of the film's leads, had to maintain his dentistry practice during production. He'd shoot his scenes during one part of the day and then see his patients during the other. He definitely did not quit his day job. Not that he could. He was reportedly only paid $1,500 to play the dad. Don Packard, who played the general store owner Sandy Maher, shot during his day trips from the mental hospital he was staying at. Yes, you heard that right. His agent called him during his stay at the local mental institution and mentioned the open casting call for Troll 2. Packard went and was given the part when the original actor had to pull out. Packard revealed years later that he was very high on weed while filming in order to calm his nerves and had no idea what was actually happening in the film. He's quoted as saying, "That was a troubled person talking," when referring to himself in the movie. He also confessed that during this time, he had an illogical hatred for the youngest star of the cast, Michael Stevenson, and often felt the urge to want to kill the boy. Considering that he was playing a goblin in disguise, maybe he was just going method. Eat your heart out, Jared Leto.
That is disturbing. Like, that, honest to God, is disturbing. I'm not trying to bash him for the fact that, you know, he had a lot of mental problems going on. But how apparently he was, I don't care if you're method acting or not. You don't try to you don't fill your head with the murder of a little kid. I don't even know what to say to that, honestly. Yeah, this production seems like it actually came from hell. Like, this is a pretty messed up and bad. Oh my gosh.
Eventually, the movie finished production and was released unto an unsuspecting world. The rest is history, a conflicted history and legacy, depending on who you ask. Troll 2 wasn't originally Troll 2 at all. During production, the cast and crew believed they were working on a film called Goblin. This is the name it was given for its release in Europe. But the film's title was changed by American distributors Epic Productions, which later folded into MGM Studios, in order to capitalize on a pre-existing film, 1986's Troll. There are no trolls in Troll 2, and the plot is in no way related or similar to the original Troll
this wasn't even the fault of the production on why people were just kind of making fun of the fact that this was called Troll 2 when it had nothing to do with trolls. I've seen Troll a long time ago. I haven't watched it in a long time. But Troll 2, I guess it's not at fault for why the name it gets made fun of now. They just kind of wanted to bank off of the fact that it was already a troll movie and was like, hey, this is kind of has something similar to do with trolls, right? I guess. So let's just go ahead and, like, you know, mythical little creatures, and let's just go ahead and bank off it, call it Troll 2. It should have been called Goblin or Neilbog or something like that. Then it would have made more sense. That simple mess up. Like, the movie doesn't have nothing to do with trolls, and they're right. It has nothing to do with trolls, so why call it Troll 2?
1986. Troll 2 was also never initially released in theaters. According to the American Film Institute catalog, Troll 2 first appeared on late-night cable television and home video. This is how the majority of the cast also first saw the film they had made. The reaction of most of the cast when they finally got to see Troll 2 was not great.
Oh.
Michael Stevenson, who would later make a documentary about his time filming Troll 2, first saw the film on VHS when his parents bought it for Christmas. After watching the film with his family, Stevenson figured his young acting career was officially over, given how bad he thought the movie was. Connie McFarlane, who played Holly, said in an interview years later that she believes being in Troll 2 stopped her from getting other acting roles. To this day, she still doesn't put the movie on her acting resume. Once released, the critics understandably tore into the film, and its standing among them hasn't improved. Troll 2 currently has a 5% score on Rotten Tomatoes. While critics may still give Troll 2 a hard time, director Fragasso stands by his work. In an interview, he's quoted as saying, "I don't make movies to be praised by critics," and that Troll 2 explores very serious, important issues. Co-screenwriter Drudy considers the film a...
Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the movie is this profit, you know, film that just people don't understand, because it's not. It's just simply not. It's a bad movie. There's no getting around it. But I do respect that I do respect the fact that the director is still standing by his art. I do. It doesn't matter what people say to him. It's still a meaningful piece of property that he made. And I gotta show respect to that. I gotta appreciate that for what it is. But unfortunately, that kind of movie can ruin careers. I mean, it really can, and it seems like it has in certain places. Now, obviously, the directing of it just could have been improved, and I think the script needed to be improved. It wasn't really anybody's fault. It was just the script and the directing that were the problem here. Even the cast tried to save, you know, their roles in a sense with certain lines, but there was no getting around it, unfortunately, because when a director has his vision, that's the vision.
A ferocious analysis of today's society. This contrast in perception between the filmmakers and the cast has resulted in some awkward interactions since the movie's release. Sometime in the early 2000s, Troll 2 gained a cult following. Midnight screenings began drawing hundreds of thousands of fans out to watch the film. Meetups and community events were organized for those who had seen it, and as a chance to initiate those who had not. This sparked several reunions with the cast and crew so they could reminisce about creating Troll 2. The reminiscing didn't always go as planned. When Fragazzo was invited to one fan screening of the film, he was happy to see the audience turn out, but the next day in an interview said he was put off by the crowd laughing at moments he had not intended to be funny. In another panel where the cast came together to talk about the film, as shown in Stevenson's Troll 2 documentary, Best Worst Movie, Fragazzo is seen heckling the cast over what he considers falsehoods in their memories about filming. He denies, for instance, that they were never given full scripts during production. He even at one point refers to the cast as dogs, an Italian insult meaning someone is really bad at something. In this case, most likely acting. Despite that drama, Fragazzo would later express that he had plans to make an official sequel to Troll 2. This was a short-lived endeavor. By 2009, he said he was no longer interested. Fans can always dream of another
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those kind of people, honestly. Like, I respect the fact that he wants to defend his property to the bitter end, but at the same time, the fact that people have this opinion about his movie, even knowing, look, the reality is, man, you made a bad movie. You made a bad movie, but at least it's being remembered as a so bad it's good movie and not just a bad movie. There is a cult following. There's something there for people to enjoy. I always recommend it to people when they ask me about it. It is absolutely a masterful bad mess. I'd be very grateful if one of my movies, if I were to direct a movie, was that so bad it's good and people actually find some enjoyment out of it. Hell, I actually made some shorts in school and people find them cringy as hell, but there's some charm to them, right? I might even show one at the end of this video, possibly. I don't know yet. Maybe we'll just have to see. But anyways, I don't like his attitude towards it, calling the actors dogs, because they're just now coming to an acceptance that, you know what, we were a part of a bad movie, but at least it has a cult following, and you know what, people are enjoying it for what it is. That is awesome. That is what anybody would ever hope and wish for. But the fact that he's getting all piss poor, ticked off, and he has to like start calling people names because he's just not happy with that, to me is just like, you know what, dude, take it for what it is. Take it for what it is. You know, look, maybe he truly believes, and maybe I truly believe that he does believe that he made a masterful piece of cinema. But for a lot of people, including myself, that's just not the case. That's all, you know, people can respect his opinion. I respect it. But I don't respect calling actors dogs because they were not happy with it. You know, the actors put a lot of trust into you when you make a movie.
Troll 2.
Ruining everybody else's fun.
Watch the 2020 film Under Control, which features George Hardy playing Michael Waits again as he tries to save a woman who is possessed by a troll. I wouldn't call it an official sequel, but it's probably the closest the world will ever get to one. Then again, bad movie magic is like lightning in a
I never
bottle,
heard of that.
and you can't always force it to happen a second time. Just ask Thanksgiving 3. In my opinion, we don't need a sequel to Troll 2. It's perfectly bad as it is.
That's right. That's right.
Usually in the final judgment, I assess if a film suffered too greatly during its time in film hell. But Troll 2 is something of a special case. In this case, yes, Troll 2 suffered in film hell. It's not considered one of the best worst movies just because. Then again, that may be why it works so well. If we're to go by Fragazzo and Drudy, Troll 2, aka Goblin, wasn't meant to be so bad it's good. Sure, there was supposed to be comedy, but not in the places where many viewers find themselves laughing. Yet, I think people have come to love it exactly because of this innocence of trying to make a good film. There was an effort, and that effort resulted in genuinely enjoyable cinema. It is so bad, it's good. It joins the ranks of other deliciously bad films like The Room, Birdemic, and Cats. Troll 2 has such a following that a fan site was created where people can take an oath to become goblins in disguise. You can still visit it today. Say
No
it with
shit.
me now. I make this sacred oath with the complete understanding that it is my duty to show the world that goblins still exist. While I continue to keep this oath unviolated, may it be granted to me to enjoy goblin life, the practice of turning humans into vegetables and spreading the Troll 2 infection at all times. There's no doubt
play
that
the
Troll
national
2
anthem
will
to
be
that.
referenced for years to come. The road to this film hell was paved with good intentions and powerful green slime. I'm Chauncey K. Robinson, and this has been Production Tales from Hell. Stay creepy out there.
Lovely. Lovely. So yeah, my opinion on Troll 2 still stands. It is a bad movie, and she's right. She does make a good point. There was actual intentions to make something awesome. And you got to understand too that most of the time when people are making movies, again, their intents are to make an awesome movie, a movie that everybody can enjoy. And sometimes it just doesn't play out that way. And I think, again, that is kind of why there is a charm to this film, is because they did try, and it just it just was crazy. It was craziness all on screen, and it was kind of magnificent on how they presented it. It just really is. So take it for what you will. Troll 2 is absolutely a cult classic movie, and it will go down as one of the best, worst movies of all time. No matter where the director is on it at this point, wherever he wants his opinion to lie, he should stick with it. It's a really fun movie to put on with your friends. It really is. And I will give it that credit. I will give it credit where credit is due. It's a good movie to put on with friends, especially if you're drinking. Anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts on Troll 2 in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on Troll 2 in the comment section down below. If you guys want me to continue reacting to these production tales from hell, all you have to do is like this video, get it up to 100 likes, and I will go ahead and react to another one. Of course, by your choice, go down below and leave a comment. Anyways, guys, until next time, do take care.
JCARTS has your back. JCARTSARTS has your mark. JCARTSARTS is throwing down, coming after me. If you can't stay, JCARTSARTS is through. You won't be let down.